Hi, everyone. In this episode, we're talking about a couple of things. The purpose of this podcast. We're talking about why Rishab left Google, why I almost left Microsoft. We talk about privilege. We dive into like so many different things in this one. And yeah, welcome to a new episode. Let's dive right in. Yeah, you do the intro.
Should I just dive into it?
Yeah, just like, hey, what's up? I don't know. Whatever you want to say at the beginning.
Hey, friends. Your favorite cloud duo is back. I'm joined here with Gwyn. She's a cloud advocate at Microsoft. And I have been changing titles really often. So I'm a developer evangelist at Twilio now.
What are you this week?
Yeah, I'm an evangelist at Twilio. So yeah, you're joined by the duo and we'll be talking about all things cloud.
The dynamic cloud duo. I like that cloud duo.
Yeah.
That's fun. Evangelist is an interesting word, but we can talk more about like your new role. There's a lot has happened. Maybe we should start off by saying, what are we doing here? Because we've tried a podcast before. Everyone knows that. And our goal is ultimately to be as transparent as we can. So I feel like we can't just dive into a brand new one without kind of addressing what happened with the last one and like what's the goal for this one, stuff like that. What do you think?
Sure. Yeah. For the last one, I think we were on a roll with I think 8 episodes until like I came in person and then we did the last episode, which was fun. We did do a lot of debugging because we all had different mics and then there was an echo. It was fun. New echo is always fun. But yeah, I think there were two things that I would like to point out. One is we kind of ran out of ideas because, we always, so the way we started it was that we will explain topics. So we started with cloud. Sometimes we would explain load balancing. I know we did an episode of explain like MF5 and then we did DevOps, right? We also did one where we just talked about careers and like burnouts and our personal kind of takeaways when we try to develop ourselves or learn new things. So I personally think we ran out of ideas after the the sixth or seventh one, and there was a lot less input, I think, among us three. And it's hard to have that 33% equal share of owning a project. I think it was hard. And then I know Alf was starting a new role, so like we all got busy in our own lives. I know you were at Build after like I think 3-4 months after we ended up the podcast, and you had your career going at Microsoft, and then I also was interviewing at various different companies.
Yeah, and then like because we ended like back in November. For those who don't know, we're talking about the Cloud Code Live podcast, and where we ended it was we essentially said, all right, this is season 1. Let's kind of reassess and figure out if we want to move forward. And then we decided, or I ultimately decided in December, like, hey, I don't want to move forward with this project, but I would, if you two, meaning you and Rishab, I mean, you and Alf, like Rishab and Alf want to move forward, you have like my full support. And then I think you said, hey, I don't want to do it either. And then Alf also agreed, like, let's like not do this either. I think we suffered a little bit of an identity crisis with the podcast as well, because the idea initially was mine, and the goal was, it's in the title, Cloud Code Live. Like, it's very close to like my YouTube thing, which is Cloud Code Serverless. But I wanted the Cloud Code Live podcast to be more just a reflection on our weeks, and we just talk like friends, like you and I. So for people who don't know, Rishab and I are like great friends offline. Like, I think the majority of our, like, though we do talk about like learn to cloud and like work and stuff like that, I think the majority of our conversations and the reasons that we've become very close is because we're friends and we talk about just our day to day quite often. Like, I don't think there's a week that we don't like catch up. Once we caught up playing ping pong over on the Oculus.
It was fun.
And we talked for like 3 hours. We played pong, but anyway, yeah. So we suffered a little bit of an identity crisis with where we wanted to take the project. And I feel like it started a little casual because we started, I think, talking about career, and then we ultimately turned it into more so like just another resource, like what we do on YouTube, what we do on Twitter, and it became like, oh, top 10 services and stuff like that. And I felt like it just wasn't making any difference in comparison to the stuff that we already did. So that was the reason why. And again, it just didn't align with everybody, so we stopped. And this podcast, so there's a couple of, again, I brought up this, I've always wanted to continue doing a podcast. I just knew that given all the things that we already do, that it had to have a solid purpose and a solid identity, and also it just had to fit well for like the people who are participating in it. So with this one, like we spoke for a while before actually recording this first episode, because I know you have done like an interviewing series on your channel. I've done some interviewing, and we like the format of like longer conversations and things like that. But we wouldn't want to have something where we wanted to find guests every single week, because then it was just like, it just felt a little too forced. But we wanted somewhere where we can hang out casually, talk about anything literally that we want, essentially just our careers in cloud. And that like just essentially like our catch-ups, but on like the podcast format. But the other thing I wanted was, I wanted a project that was an extension of Learn to Cloud, where we can talk about the developments of Learn to Cloud and things that we were doing, things that any updates and such, but also something that isn't necessarily just me, because I felt like that was a lot of like Cloud Code Live, where it was, if I didn't want to do it, then it didn't move forward. And then the difference with this, which is we're calling it Random Cloud Chats, because I'm going to stop streaming random cloud chats, and then we're going to use this podcast to essentially answer any like of the I guess like major questions that we get during the week. But I wanted this project to be primarily yours, where like you kind of take the direction of the show, you're hosting. If there's ever a guest, like I'll come off and you'll be you and the guest. You'll essentially take it anywhere. Like of course you'll have like my support and all that kind of stuff. But I just wanted something to be like yours. And I think we also discussed that like the audio like podcast format and long conversation is something that you enjoy more than, I think you even said like more than just like YouTube videos.
Yeah. No, for sure. And that's so, and I think like the audience can relate with me here. Like they have often seen me, either with you on random cloud chats, which I love doing. And that's why, we have the podcast now. But then when you presented the idea of Cloud Code Live, I was like, yeah, bam, let's do it. Because, it's always fun. As you said, we were talking for 2-3 hours the other day when we were playing Pong. And it was our personal lives and then career related stuff. We talked about cloud, where Learn to Cloud is going, and all of that good stuff. Also, same thing happened. I have been meaning to post this screenshot of, we catching up. So me and Gwyn, we try to catch up every week or every 2 weeks, but when we don't, and then you call the other person, we spend hours on the phone. So yeah. And as you said, I love doing, long and just having a conversation. Like I think our chemistry is really good. Like I can open up with you on certain things, and we have had that. It's a different thing about just having conversation, but having like a meaningful outcome out of it, I think has helped me, grow into what I am today. So yeah, here we are.
Likewise, man. I think there's, I guess, I mean, I don't want to like stress it too much, but like we are friends. Like we have each other's backs. Like we talk about so many more things that have nothing to do with career.
For sure.
And I think because we have that, it's like we gotta bring this. We gotta do something with this where it can, to an extent, also be an insight for other people. Because I feel like in tech, there's just so much focus on the technical, like the skill set, all those kinds of things, and then we tend to forget that we're human beings, that we need to communicate with each other, that we need to build meaningful relationships to have better teams and all these kinds of things. But I think that is something that you and I have prioritized since we essentially like got to know each other over Twitter like a couple of years ago, and then we bonded quickly, and then a lot of my career growth a lot. Like I know you contribute a lot of what you've done to me, but a lot of what I've been able to do and grow in like my career and also as a person is because I've had consistent conversations with you, and I want other people to understand that like let's not get lost in the sauce of like technical skill set.
Sure.
Like let's remember that we're humans. But anyway, long story short, we're here. This is the Random Clouds Cloud Chats podcast. Rishab will be your host. I will be here whenever he doesn't have someone else to fill in the spot. But I felt like it's probably a good fit to have me on for the first episode. And I knew right away when I was like, we're going to do this. If we're going to do this, then we're going to be transparent. I brought up the topic that you were like, okay, cool. Let's talk about it for the first one. And then I think I also know like a follow-up episode that I want to do whenever I'm back on. But why don't you go ahead and intro us to, or do you want to start, or should we start with like a recap of the week or like what? I don't know. I feel like there's so much that we can catch up on that we haven't like spoken about publicly. But well, like I don't know, wherever.
Yeah, let's do a recap of the week quick, and that way we have this kind of format for our upcoming episodes too, where people just dive into the episode and you kind of know what we have been up to for the week. Do you wanna go ahead?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I've been programming a lot for the past 3 weeks or so that's what I've been stuck on. I'm migrating an ASP MVC application to a serverless implementation with Azure Functions, .NET 6 isolated, which there isn't a lot of documentation on. I finally got the code working. Everything runs locally, and I met with essentially like the lead engineer yesterday, and kind of next steps. Now I have to work with some infrastructure as code with Bicep, and then I had to spend a lot of time configuring. Have you ever used tasks and the launch in VS Code? So the launch.json is how to configure your debugger, and then the tasks is essentially you can like create tasks to put together commands for your project, right? So you can build the tasks as like build API, and it does a bunch of things. Or like if you have like a front end and a back end, you can build a task that says like deploy web and API, and it'll go and run the commands that it needs to run. So you don't have to type them out manually, right? So I did a deep dive on that today. I got that to a state where it's like great. But my issue now is, and I swear, like I have my work laptop still open because I have like 20 tabs open. I have 3 different instances of the Azure portal open with different Cosmos DB accounts and different function apps, because apparently when you try to deploy a .NET 6 isolated function, if you don't provide a payload, then you're going to have issues with the runtime host. It's going to say like, oh, I can't find the Azure Functions worker or something. The minute you then deploy a payload, so code, like an application and such, it clears up. But the issue with Bicep is like, from what I know, you can't deploy code with it. You're only deploying infrastructure, right? So that is a pain that I'm figuring out now. And also, I think there might be an issue with the dependency injection that I'm utilizing locally, because it works fine locally, but when it's deployed, I get like 503 bad gateway. I don't know. It's like a bunch of things. But I was a few minutes late to this call because I had just found something like, oh, this has to be it. And then I wanted to dive in deeper. I'm like, no, I got to take a break. I got to go record this thing with Rishab. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm hoping by next week I'll have like it completely done. It's going to be a template for the Azure Developer CLI, which y'all should check out. Really cool. It's going to be a template for that. Hopefully I figure everything out that I need to. Outside of that, I've been like trying to do different kinds of YouTube videos. I did a day in a life. I did a what else did I do? I did a review on the Cloud Resume Challenge book. Shout out to Forrest Brazil, great book. And what else am I up to? That's kind of it. It's like it's been heavy work for me for the past couple of months, actually, since I got back from Build, or since I was preparing for Build, which has been great. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Stay tuned next week to see if I figure out what's going on.
Nice. Is there a workaround for Bicep to deploy code? Like, can you zip it and deploy it?
Potentially, but I don't want to do anything that's like hacky. I see what you mean. I mean, in that case, you would have like, but what do people typically use? Like pipelines and such?
You mean Azure pipelines?
No, like, well, when you need to deploy code but make sure it's so. How would you approach it with Terraform? Like, how would you deploy code or an application utilizing Terraform?
That's a really good question. Yeah, it depends. It's
a good question.
Because I recently came across something similar. So I was trying to do something with Google Cloud Functions. as the name suggests. It's really similar to Azure Functions. But with Terraform, totally with Terraform, right? Because I've been able to do that by, hacking something, or like have a hacky way with Azure Functions where I can deploy it. Or I use Bicep, right? But with Google Cloud Functions, and if anybody knows, whoever is listening to this, please let me know if there is a way. I have to zip my, if it's a JavaScript project, I have to zip my index.js and whatever else is in my project, zip it into a folder, like create a folder, zip that folder, upload it to a bucket. And then in Terraform, I specify that, hey, here's where the code exists, and then deploy the function. So you cannot deploy code directly, but it's still, like you said, it's a hacky way. And that's what I found, like, on most of blogs and stuff when I looked up how to deploy Google Cloud Function with Terraform. But yeah, that's why I asked, like, if there's a workaround. But if somebody has kind of solved it, please let us know.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably ask Kevin, who I did the advanced Bicep. I should have asked him already, but anyway, to see if he's aware. But I mean, it shouldn't be an issue in the first place. It is a bug in GitHub. Like, it's an issue listed in the GitHub repo for the Azure Functions worker. So they're working on it. It's apparently in triage or something like that. So they're aware that it's an issue, because you should be able to just create a function app with no functions, like just the infrastructure, and with having no and then so it's ready for you to deploy something to it. But anyway, that's where I'm at. What are you up to? How's your week been? You've had a pretty eventful couple of months as well.
Yeah, so my family was here all the way from India. Showed them around Kitchener, Waterloo, and we went to Montreal. Busy month. And then last weekend, I and Misha got married. So that was you could say a relief, because it was really fast. We didn't plan it out. It was all sudden, and I'm just glad it went well. And so that kept me busy. But this week I did think, I bought the A7C, which I was pretty excited about, and I haven't tested it yet, but we'll see. I've heard good things from Gwyn, so that's why I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna buy a camera, let's get the same one, because her videos are top notch. And then the Google Cloud thing, so Google Cloud Function thing, I'm still working on it. I'm also working on the blog post for Twilio, so that's coming. And then this Thursday, I'm presenting the resume API that I did with Gwyn for the serverless September, and then also on the Microsoft Reactor. But this time, I'm doing it in person for the Toronto Reactor. So this Thursday, I'll be there. But so just refreshing on that, because when I tried to deploy the Azure function based on what I wrote in the blog post, it failed because it was using version 2 and like deprecated version of Node. So I had to, so I have to update that blog, but also had to change some instructions on, update the Azure CLI and all of that good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, for those who are not aware, if you are ever interested in presenting any technical content, the Microsoft Reactor is a great place, because like Rishab mentioned a couple of times, like he's presented at a couple of these. And then I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but we're going to be doing something in the future at some point. And there's the ability to do things in person, hybrid, or strictly online. So if you're interested, get in touch with your local Microsoft Reactor, reach out to me on Twitter. I can connect you with the right person. And you can put on technical events or really any kind of events, as long as you're building community with technical community.
Oh, yeah. And to be honest, it doesn't
interact.
have to be like any of the Microsoft products either. Like it can be anything. And then also it can be also career related, because I saw like some streams that were, just career related, soft skills and stuff. So feel free to reach out.
I'd say the only limitation is like we don't want it to be like there's no reason for an AWS advocate to come on and just plug AWS on our platform like that. But
yeah,
that's kind of
it should be
obvious,
like community
right?
focused, you know.
Yeah,
You're not trying to sell your product.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so get in touch with me if you're interested, and I'll connect you with the right person. But yeah, you covered a lot of like what you're up to. I haven't had any major changes in terms of career. Like I hit 1 year at Microsoft back in like a month from ago, and then my first 25% vested. It literally hit my account on Monday.
Nice.
It's a nice little feeling. But yeah, I'm still like I got promoted back in May, and things. I mean, same role essentially, just like up a level. Haven't made any changes to that at all. But though, remember at the beginning I mentioned like I know next episode that would be a great title because when we had a reorg right before I hit 1 year, we had a reorg, and I was like, I'm like, to be 1000% honest, I was like,
yeah.
And you know this because I talk like I tell people like I talk to you about everything. Like I was like super frustrated, and I let my emotions and like a bunch of other feelings get the best of me, and I was like, all right, I'm getting out of here. And that was and then I thought like, oh, we should talk about like, why GPS almost left to Microsoft. I think that would be a fantastic topic because we can talk about, you know, being comfortable with change, being comfortable with reorgs, which is like, it's going to happen at big organizations. There's not big organizations that don't go through reorgs and stuff like that, but we can leave that for a different episode. But yeah, you're at Twilio now. You've been there for
2 months. Yeah.
What, like
today's 19th. Yeah. So 16th, I hit 2 month mark.
Yeah. How do you feel now that you're in DevRel?
Good. I'm not gonna lie, it's like, okay, I finally made it. You know, it's one of those things to having it write down on your, you know, goals or bucket list that you want to do this, and then finally being able to just tick it off and be like, okay, yeah, I made it. It's a lot different than any of the roles that I've done in the past. You need I'm gonna say you need a lot of energy. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah.
I think I would say that I was in a comfort zone because, you know, I've been doing infrastructure and DevOps cloud for the last 4 years. So, you know, after a certain time, you become, especially at the same company, you kind of become the expert because you know everything. Like, you know where is that server, which file needs to be configured to have this change and stuff. So you're in that comfort zone and you're not learning anything new. So you become lazy, is what I'm trying to say. And then I joined DevRel, and it's like so different, and you need to learn, also upskill, but then also present, talk, you know, write blog posts, have some kind of content. So it's a lot more public facing, a lot different than any of the roles that I've had in the past, but I'm here for it, so I'm enjoying it so far.
That's good. It's a good change for you. I know you've always wanted to be in DevRel, so you definitely got there. I think the way you got there was you had a very interesting,
yeah,
like past 6 months. Before we dive into that, because I know we're gonna name the episode about this subject that we want to dive into, but before we dive into that, I feel like we also should talk about, maybe this could be a different episode, but like what DevRel actually is, because I don't really think most people know.
Yeah.
What it is, or like a lot of people will just take it as like marketing and such, which it can be.
There's
some places,
there's
but
like
places that do DevRel good,
but it's really easy to cross that line.
Yeah, there's.
I believe so.
Yeah, if
exactly
depending on what you're tracking, what matters, and like there's not necessarily a good or bad thing. It just depends on the goals of the company. But for me, because I now am at a point where I get invitations to interview for DevRel positions at a bunch of different companies. But one of the first questions I always ask were like, all right, so first of all, where does DevRel fall in your company? And then if it's under engineering, I'm like, all right, green flags. If it's under marketing, it's not necessarily 100% no, but I'm gonna start looking at the role like, all right, I'm a little iffy here, because when it's under marketing, I feel like it's always associated with either like quotas or sales or just like things like that don't necessarily bring too much value, in my opinion, to that kind of DevRel that I want to do. DevRel at Microsoft is under engineering. So we're under like the cloud department, org, whatever it's called. And I don't have to sell subscriptions or anything like that. Like Azure subscriptions isn't something that I'm measured or valued by and things like that. But yeah, I think it's probably going to be a topic for its own.
I think we can cover it.
It's its own episode. But yeah. Anyway, let's finally dive into what we wanted to talk about. We're only like 25 minutes in. Talk about the actual title of the episode.
Yeah. So when Gwyn said it, it's interesting and funny how I eventually got into DevRel is. So I made a career change, a big one, from leaving ECI as DevOps to becoming a TSS at Google, which stands for Technical Solutions Specialist. What I ended up is I started doing support for Google Cloud, which no hate for support roles. It's just not something that I wanted to do. And kind of was not clear when I was being interviewed. So as I onboarded, we were 1 month in, I kind of started seeing, okay, you got it. Like we were being trained on every different offering that Google Cloud has. And then you kind of have to pick your, specialization. And then I started seeing support cases and I'm like, okay, I'm not sure this is what I want to do. Because, as I said, I was cloud engineer for 2 years and then did DevOps. None of those were, support roles. And I was like really happy with where I was. But when I was at the DevOps role, it was kind of, as I said, there were no new learnings happening, right? And having spent like 4.5 years at ECI, I was like, okay, I think it's the right time to move unless there is like a new learning opportunity for me. But so I did bring it up with, my manager at Google that, hey, I'm not happy in this role. I was not, ready for this. Like I was just not ready to be a support engineer because I had a completely different image of what I was going to do at Google. And so he asked me what I really want to do. And I'm like, I've been doing, YouTube blogs and all of this technical content on my own. Like I would love to move into DevRel. And then the discussion started. So I think this was at month 2. And then I did pass my probation period. But then there was this policy that you cannot transition to a different team until you have done a performance review for your current role, which was 10-12 months apart from when I joined Google. So I'm like, I'm not gonna spend a year waiting for this performance review to make it into DevRel, even though it sounds really amazing to be a developer advocate at Google. But yeah, and who knows if I could make that transition, right? Because there would have been interviews and they would have seen like what level I am or what level they were looking for, right? And also the fact that is there any availability or the roles are open or not after the 12-month mark. So yeah, I decided to, okay, I'll start looking for DevRel position outside of Google. And that's when I stumbled upon Twilio. So Twilio had an opening for developer evangelist. I had also interviewed at Rapid API for developer advocate. And then there was another startup that I interviewed. Unfortunately, there was not any roles open at Microsoft. Yeah.
Yeah, we filled our Toronto role, I think like a couple of months before.
Yeah, I think when I was
looking.
Yeah, when I was in NYC, that's when we talked about a couple of different openings, but then the leveling was the issue, right? They were looking for senior cloud advocates. Yeah. I remember us having a discussion.
I thought you did apply to.
Yeah, I did have
information.
That. But after that too, I think we did have a discussion about opportunities at Microsoft. It was recent.
That was recent though. right? Yeah, I thought you did interview for the. Did you actually interview for the Toronto role, or did you not get the opportunity? Yeah. Just the informational. Okay. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, anyone who was gonna go up against Bruno was gonna have a tough competition because he's just like one of the best at what he does, and he's been in the field for like years. So, and he has a GitHub repo, like so many sessions. I'm like so jealous of how organized and how like.
I'm looking forward to like.
But anyway, that comes with time.
This Thursday,
Yeah, he's the nicest dude ever. Like I get to work with him on a couple of consistent projects, and it's just like the nicest guy ever. I feel like so there's a couple of things that I wanted to kind of like follow up, and then again, we before we started recording this, I think the other day we had a discussion. I was like, look, I'm gonna push you to like really like bring out the truth, and then you were like, oh, I'm totally down to talk about anything. It's more and it's more so like whenever it's like a two-way conversation, it's easier because
also like
just kind of like sitting.
Yeah, I also want to feel
sitting
like comfortable
there
having that discussion, right? So
yeah, it's like because when I watched your video, I was like, you're not being honest, but that's fair because when I and this could be a topic for now or a topic for the next episode, whatever we do, is like when I left ACG. I didn't do it.
I'm joining Microsoft.
No, I tried Microsoft.
Yeah, you.
But I did a tweet. I think I tweeted it or something like that, and I wasn't fully honest either. But I feel like now that I'm removed from it, I can talk and I can like be 1,000% honest. But anyway, when I saw your video, which is one of your more popular videos on your channel, it's like why I left Google. I think you left out a couple of things that I get why you did leave it out, but I just also think they're fair points to bring up. And now that we have like kind of this platform to talk about it, I wanted to bring it up. But I think a major thing is around that time that you joined, Google had that like massive layoff of like your department essentially, but not in like your location. But I think literally everyone in the US from within your department got laid off, right? And I remember you reaching out to me. You know, you sent me. I don't know. I think you sent me like a
Business Insider
news story or something
article,
like that, or like a TikTok. Yeah. And I was like, damn. So you couple that with the fact that you are already not feeling the work and like you weren't enjoying it. Like that adds like so much more pressure. Cause I feel like if that didn't happen, things could have potentially gone a different way, or it might have been just a little later. But I felt like that added a lot of
it's not just, you know, and this happened. I have this bad habit, and that we talked about this 2 days ago of, you know, scrolling when I'm in my bed, and it's like it's 11ish p.m. and I should be sleeping, but I'm not. And I don't know why I decided to open Reddit at 11 p.m. And the first thing that I see is, you know, that Business Insider article. And then, you know, once you see it, and it did like caught me off guard, and I'm like, what? I'm like, let me confirm it. So I see like Google employees posting stuff about, you know, I've been laid off, like here goes my career. I have been here for like, you know, 3-4 years, and they were really loving the job, right? Yeah. They were there to be a TSC or TSD. And so yeah, that just got me. I'm like, I'm so like, I was trying to, you know, not make an impulse decision and be like, okay, there must be a reason why they did this. Or maybe it's performance based. I don't know. Because there was just half information. And Reddit is not, you know, the best place to source your news out of. So there were more announcements made, you know, and then we heard from leadership, like, this is the reason, you know, we're cutting costs and stuff. These are expensive cities. I get it. Makes sense. It's a business. If they don't make money, it's just not, you know, feasible. But yeah, I don't think Google has ever done layoffs before this. Yeah.
I mean, like that? I don't know, to be honest. But I think maybe they were just, you know, these hire. So the reason I bring this next point up is because Microsoft is also on a hiring freeze. I don't know if entirely but there's hiring freeze, and I don't know of any layoffs, but I'm not saying there isn't any. I just don't know of any of them. But these companies have like really smart people who are out there analyzing the business, the numbers, the economy, And I just wonder if that move from Google was essentially just kind of like looking out for the business, because now like companies for the past 2-3 months have been doing nothing but laying off and hiring freezes and such like that. So maybe that was like a move towards that. But yeah, like you said, just to save money. But I mean, we can only see it as individuals who like work there. It's like, oh, am I next? Like, I'm not gonna lie, when I heard like Microsoft went on a hiring freeze, and I was like, I gotta get smarter with my money. I wasn't like worried like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna get fired, even though sometimes I do think that. But no, seriously, I think about that all the time. Like, I'm gonna get fired, even though like I perform well, like, you know, I just got promoted, like, blah blah. But like, I'm still like, oh, I'm gonna get cut tomorrow. It's gonna be me, right? For no reason.
Yeah, it's the imposter syndrome,
like
right?
That, right. So, and just like you, you know, you go on Reddit,
yeah.
Damn it, I'm next, right? No, but I think that definitely aided you like not wanting to like continue,
definitely.
like, find the next move.
It's you know, you don't trust now because it happened to other 200 engineers who were in the same team. So what's the guarantee that, like, let's say the org that we work in, they don't make money next year too, and they decided, okay, other 200 out. I know for sure it'll be me. But yeah, that's just something that gets into your head, even though if it's not true. But you know, but you also have to go with your, you know, I always go with my gut feeling that, okay, if I don't trust the situation, there's a reason why I don't. So yeah. I was like, okay, but yeah, to your point, it did add up to, you know, that kind of mindset. Okay, the role is not what I want. Now the layoffs are happening, so I don't know if it's you know, even though if it's Google, like, I was super glad I was joining Google. I know, like, I shared the news with you, right? But in the end of the day, it was just my happiness and, like, you know, my peace of mind was not there. We didn't do I didn't do much content in those 4 months because I just didn't have the mental energy to, you know, put myself out and record something. And then I know I used to talk to you like at 7 or 8 every 2 weeks and tell you like how miserable I am and like I'm not liking this.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That leads to the next point. The process of like actually making the decision to leave, because I think that's a big one, and it's something that I'm sure you had multiple conversations. Like, I remember, like, we talked about it a couple of times. It wasn't just something like you were like, hey, I'm thinking about doing it, and I was like, yeah, go ahead. Because first of all, I would never do that, because one thing like my mom has told me is like, if someone really cares about you, they're gonna really try to make you see all the sides of like possibilities, and they're not gonna just be yes men or anything like that. And you've never been that to me, and I will never be that to you. So I remember our first conversation about this, and I'm sure like you told like you talked to a bunch of people about this, but I'm gonna speak from my point of view. I was like, dude, you gotta at least try to stay enough so you can put it on your resume. And that was like my initial, like, without fully having like conversations. And I know I saw you like not feeling happy, but my opinion was like still at that point, it was like, dude, just freaking, I don't know, 6 months. It hit 6 months, and then you can have it on your resume. You can say, like, just, stay there. Like, and then you were like, I'm gonna go think about this, and you hadn't made a decision. And I didn't change my mind until we talked about it later. And then to me it was like, you're bringing this up again. You're clearly not unhappy. And then I was like, at this point, yeah, you gotta make a move. Because, I mean, I feel like if it's something that's like keeping you up for a while, and it's like it's in the back of your mind for a while, and like you come to like people are close to you multiple times about it, then it just clearly means that like something has to change, right? Whether that be what role within Google, which you tried already, like you couldn't do that. It's like, okay, outside of it. But the reason I bring this up is because I'm sure, like, I know I saw comments on your YouTube video, people like, why would you leave Google? And like the same thing when I was talking to my parents, because during like this, like I mentioned, like when there was a reorg, I did do some interviewing, and just collect some informationals and stuff for like other dev roles. And then there were potential offers on the table and kind of like ranges and just stuff like that, like nothing official. So I'm very happy now, by the way, if my manager is listening to this and my team, I'm very happy now, but like a significant amount of that was me just changing my mindset. And I think we can talk about that later in a different episode, but anyway. And I had gone, because I always go to my parents and then I go to you. I went to my parents and I'm like, I'm thinking about doing this. And they were like, why would you leave Microsoft? But the reason that argument is different for me is because I am in the role that I want to be. And when you're in the role that you want to be in, you can put up with a lot more than when you're in a role that you don't want to be in. Because when you're in a role that you don't want to be in, I feel like everything is like 10x, makes you 10x unhappier. You're 10x like, why do I have to put up with this? When you're in a role that does align with you, you're like, all right, I know, like, I gotta make this spreadsheet, I gotta do this Word doc, whatever. But I know it's like at the end of the day, I get to do what I want to do. So that was the biggest difference, and the reason why my decision ended up being different than your decision, right? But I wanted to, and you mentioned this, it's like I wanted to talk to you about like the prestige or the like. I think you used another word about like
there's
like reputation.
There's
like,
the reputation. There's
I don't know.
you
Use
the
another
social
word.
Pressure, the social status, and the social pressure.
The status,
of why
social status,
a person
and social
in
pressure.
his
Yeah.
all senses would leave Google, given that it was so hard to crack into, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so as we talked. So I know like my exact conversations with you. So I talked to my parents after I talked to you. I talked to Misha before this, and she's like it's Google. Like try to like if you can make it work, try to make it work. Otherwise, if you're like if it's really bothering you and if you're really like miserable and unhappy, like sure, just leave it. I don't care where you work, which is good to know because there's that support. And then I talked to you and you were like, like at least make the 6-month mark, and that way you can have it on your resume. And I remember you said that you could make it up with you working at a gas station for 2 years. Try this for like, it's only a matter of 3 months.
Yeah, I remember.
So you should be able to like put up with this. And I'm like, but I think when I think like my mental peace at working at that gas station was much more than when I was working at Google. And nothing bad, or like there's the environment itself at Google is awesome. The people are awesome. My manager was super supportive. He did understand like I didn't want this role, right? I didn't want to work in this role. The team was amazing. It's just like I don't want to do this. So it's same as I don't want to go back and work at the gas station. If it's like a necessity, sure. But if it's like, hey Rishab, like leave Twilio tomorrow and go work at the gas station, I don't want to do that. So like, it was that simple. And then simple, really. I remember calling you again, I think after like 3 or 4 weeks, and you said, okay, like there seems to be an issue because you're bringing it up again, and totally like it's not 6 months. You're calling me back in a month and saying that okay, this is not working. And I think like you have always, I don't know, I don't want to like put something as a name to the bond or the relation that we have as friends, but it definitely feels me, it's like you're a bigger sister where you said, okay, you said like, okay,
absolutely.
Look for new roles and opportunities if you cannot transfer internally, right? And then you said to have the open conversation with your manager and tell him like these are the dev opportunities that you want to explore at Google. So
all right, he can like that.
It didn't work internally, and then I started exploring Twilio, other companies, wherever developer relations roles were available. But Gwyn is a great friend. Moral of the story.
I appreciate that. I think also I was like a lot not easygoing, but a lot more like, okay, this is the right move because I'm a big believer in like things happen the way that they're supposed to happen, and like it's everything at its time. And I also saw that you were getting opportunities to interview, and like you were getting along in like all these processes, like doing well in interviews. And I'm like, okay, maybe this is just the jump that he needs to take. Maybe it's like, maybe isn't Google now, maybe it could be Google like DevRel later, maybe his next move after this is Microsoft or whatever it is. But maybe this just isn't, he's not supposed to be at Google now, and he's supposed to go move into DevRel and whatnot. And then I think once you told me Twilio, I was like, yeah, dude, because I Twilio is, it's, in terms of DevRel, it's a place that I definitely do respect. You know, they do a lot of great things. I think the product is very interesting. Well, the several products is very interesting. And I just think in terms of like the role that you landed as well, like the pay that you landed as well, all these kinds of things were just like, all of it was great. All of it was positive. You seemed happy. And I was like, yeah, that's like the move you got to do. But, you know, the reason why I wanted to ultimately bring up this conversation was like, I just wanted to, I think it's a lesson towards like, it's more than just the name, right? It's more than just like that, because you don't want to go and sell like your happiness for the fact that you get to work at like a famous place like Meta or Google or whatnot, right? And it does really do come down to, okay, is this aligned with what I want to do? So I feel like a lot of people like get hung up on like, oh, if I don't get into big tech, then I'm a failure. But like a lot of like smaller, medium-sized companies not only give you the opportunity to grow and to explore, but a lot of them have like really great pay, even sometimes better pay, really great benefits. And I think earlier on in my career, I absolutely benefited from being at like startups and mid-sized companies. And so I knew that, all right, if you're going to make the move from like a big company to like smaller size or mid-sized company, though Twilio is pretty big. It's not the size of Google, of course, but it's still pretty big. I think like, I know this is going to bring a lot towards you in like the next couple of years that you spend there, or however long you end up spending there. Like, it's going to be a good move for you. And that there's a big difference I've noticed also in like your demeanor and the sentiment that you have with work. And I see you creating more, and you kind of doing conferences and like doing talks and accomplishing all these things that you want to do. So it was a good move. I don't regret making you second, like thinking twice about the move, just because like, you know, it was a big one. But you thought about it a lot. Like you said, like it was over a month just from you like talking to me about it, and like, who knows how long you were thinking about it, right? So I just want I bring that up to say, everyone, that, you know, it's not all like roses and flowers and stuff like that when you like get into, because I guess it's like, you know, there's this saying that be careful what you wish for, because you don't really know where what it looks like, right? Like, yeah, there's like prestige and the social status, I guess, which I think is just dumb with working at these companies, but you don't really know like what comes with it. So for some people it works great, for some people it doesn't. There's plenty of people who leave companies to go just like complete startups and be like, I want to be in something completely different. Plenty of people, like people have been leaving Microsoft like left and right. A lot of them go to like a bunch of different places, right? So yeah, I think that was something that I wanted to bring up, and it leads me into, is I also did like, I guess a similar jump from like leaving ACG, just A Cloud Guru that I worked for 6 months, to leaving Microsoft. Well, I guess I did the reverse, because you left big tech to go to I don't know what they call it, like small tech. Mid tech. Let's call it small tech. Mid tech. And then I left mid tech to go to big tech. And you brought up a good point, because you were like, oh, like when you left ACG, like it was because like you were looking for roles. And then I said like, not necessarily, I was open to roles. And then you brought up the job posting. You showed it to me, and that's ultimately the role that I ended up giving. But again, I say that when I said like things tend to align in ways for you to like just go for them if you put in the work and like you meet kind of like hard work. What does it say? Luck is when hard work meets opportunity, right? So I had been 6 months at ACG, and I was having some struggles. And like the biggest reason that I was having a struggle at ACG was because they wouldn't let me upload content to YouTube. Towards the end, I was still doing it anyway, because I was like, this is just ridiculous. But they were like very like, you can't upload tutorials, you can't upload this is like things like that. And if I wanted to upload a video, I would have to like tell them the idea and stuff like that. And that was just like a big, like YouTube is a big part of like what I do. I love doing it. I do it on the side. Like it's like a hobby for me. Right. So, yeah. And they wouldn't let me do that. So towards like the end of the 6 months, I was very, very much open to like finding somewhere else to go to. And you brought up the job posting, and then the hiring manager for that role, turns out I had already had like a conversation with this person a couple of months ago. So this is again what I'm telling people, like when things are like sort of like supposed to go a certain way, I truly do believe that they just align. And then our first conversation, he was like, oh yeah, we spoke before already. I know a little bit about you. I've seen your stuff, all these kinds of things. And of course, stuff that I've done at ACG has contributed towards my resume and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to say it's like a bad place to work or like I hated it. Or, no, definitely not. Like it was great. To my manager, shout out Angela, to my manager who was at ACG, she is probably like the best manager I've ever had. And we still like catch up from time to time. Like I just caught up with her like a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, it was like a great place. But like you said, like Google was great. It's ultimately just, there was just something that didn't align with you. And sometimes when you're willing to just really stick to your guns and stand up for what you believe in, like these other opportunities will come and find you. And I think those things matter as well. But with that, we also have to acknowledge the amount of privilege that we have.
Yes.
Because of that, right? You know, there's like financial privilege. There's like, you know, the support that you have from your family, from your now wife, from your friends, from the community and such. In order for you to be like, F this, I'm leaving Google. Like it takes a lot of privilege to do that. It does. So I want to make sure we don't like forget that. Also, with leaving ACG, like I was making 94,000 USD. That is a significant amount of money. And for me to be like, F this, I want to leave, this doesn't align with me, comes with a lot of privilege, especially during like where we're at currently with like the economy and like potential recession coming up, hiring freezes, layoffs, all these kind of things doing. With me to be able to have the mindset of like F this, I'm leaving, I deserve something better. It's like that comes with a significant amount of privilege, and sometimes that people just don't get those opportunities. But you know, with that, it's also like like it's hard to say like money isn't everything, but it is. I think there's truth to that statement. But yeah, I guess just these moves are more than just the technical aspect. Right? It's more than just like there's so much more because you spend how much time, how many hours, dude. I remember one day we talked at like 11 and you were on like a work meeting, you had just stopped. You're like, oh, can I talk to you later? I was like, all right. And it's like 11. It's like, oh, I just got off a work meeting. Or you were in between something or something like that. I was like, what? How many hours were you typically working like while like you were at Google? Like,
for
me,
it was like, so for the
a good amount.
Like the official hours, it was like from, you know, your usual 8 to 5. I think there was something like some meeting or something when that happened in regards to onboarding or something where, you know, there was or I decided to watch it like on a different time zone kind of thing, you know, because they would have batches of onboarding sessions. And yeah, I usually like there was no pressure from Google as in general to, you know, stay up late or, you know, work outside of your 8 to 5. It's just like onboarding to a new role, especially which I don't like, it was a bit difficult for me. And then also it would take extra time than just, you know, the onboarding sessions themselves, like because you need to get to know the platform. And this is the irony. I know AWS, I know Azure, and I decided to work at Google Cloud. So it took me like few months at least to, you know, get to know the platform and see how Google Cloud is, what their offerings are, how does their UI look, because those are the cases that I would get mostly. So yeah, I think that's where my ample of time went. And as I said, onboarding is necessarily not easy, but here I am at Twilio too, right? And you can see the difference in my
absolutely. Like, and the reason I asked you like how many hours is because, you know, you end up spending work at least 8 hours. Some people do less, some people do more. Like it's a big part of you. So if it doesn't fit and like big significant part of your life, like oftentimes you end up spending more time with colleagues than you do with like people that you are like close with, right? So if it's such a big part of you, like, don't you deserve to be able to make decisions that are like align, right? But I understand that comes with a significant amount of privilege, but I'm just, for me, just so grateful that I can make those decisions, and that's where I'm at.
Definitely.
That's where I'm at, and like that's important. Like, but so Microsoft is big. Well, I guess let me make it a little bit more niche. My team, and then specifically my manager, is very big on work-life balance. And y'all saw my like day in the life video, and like that was a real honest day. I wasn't faking it. All that stuff that actually got done, like it's published. Like you can go see it publicly. Like that's literally like my day. Like it's a significant amount of time, and like I live like my career now is more so like it fits into my life in a way that is typically
it's not
like
a strict
8 to 5 or 9 to 6 or whatever. Yeah, but it ends up being about the same amount of time or more. But I love it. Like I let it be that. Right? I let it be that. But yeah, if it's gonna take a significant amount of time out of your life, and also with us, because I know how you work and I know your work ethic, we're always gonna do our absolute best to go above and beyond. Like it's not enough for us to do 100%. We're gonna go and do 200%. And if that means we're gonna need to stay a couple of hours up late to like learn or upskill or whatever it is, we're gonna do that. So if on top of the amount of work that's expected from us, we're going out of our way to go do more, like we need to make sure like that is just for the right reasons, for the right role, all those kinds of things. So yeah, anyway, there's more to just be just being like, oh, why did you leave Google?
It's not.
Why would you leave Google?
You cannot just put it in like one question. And as I said, like I had really supportive, partner, really supportive friends. My family took it really well. Like I remember talking to my mom and dad and be like, hey, like this is what's going on. I'm like eventually planning to leave Google once I've something in hand, or maybe a potential offer. And they were like, okay, yeah, if you're not happy, sure, like go ahead, and we don't care. Like it's hard, like because people would ask them like, why did your son leave Google? But they were like, just like don't bother about it, we're fine.
Yeah, with immigrants, status is very important. Like my mom doesn't know what I do, but she tells people like, oh, my daughter works at Microsoft. That's kind of it. And then that's enough for them to be like, oh wow, she works at Microsoft. But and I get that, and I get a lot of pride in that my mom gets to feel that way when she says certain things. But ultimately, if I wasn't happy, she'd be like, go do whatever you want to do. Like who cares? Like, right? And that again, it's privileged to have parents that are like super supportive. But yeah, ultimately, it's a lot more than just like, why'd you leave Google? And while we're at it, like I feel like we have like a little bit more time. I just want to like, instead of making an entire different episode, I want to like dive into like, because maybe we can make the title like, oh, why Rishab left Google and why GPS almost left Microsoft.
Yeah,
that'd be like a great.
It's a similar topic.
It's like similar. I don't want to do like a whole nother episode. Yeah. So, and plus, since I started getting into it earlier, I felt like I might as well just get it going. Yeah, get it all out. Yeah. And I don't want rumors or anything like that to be started. So I might as well just be fully transparent and things like that. So anyway, we had a reorg back in, I think it was like June. I tweeted it. I was like, oh, so this is what a reorg feels like, right? I think it was early June. And I was just like, I was sort of upset perhaps, or maybe, upset might be like the best word, because I was like, I felt like I had just gotten a hang of what things were. And I was becoming, like, it's not that I wasn't good at it before, but it was more so I was just like comfortable, and like I knew kind of like the next things that I wanted to do. And when a reorg happens, like your OKRs can change, the sort of like, I guess the mission or whatnot can change, and things like that. So, and then obviously with the further down the ladder you are, the less kind of understanding you have, except for like the communication that leadership gives you. Of like why things happened and things like that, right? And then a lot of it can seem like kind of like just an impulse, where I think in reality, like reorgs and just massive changes like that take like months
planning,
right? It's not like they just thought yesterday, like, oh, let's just scramble everything up, like. But when you get this kind of news and like you're kind of like in your role and you're enjoying it and you're enjoying your team and things like that, like it's easy for you, like, these feelings to get to the best of anyone, but I'm going to speak specifically to me. Like, it got to me, and I remember telling you, like, oh, this happens, like, I'm upset because, like, I don't get it, like, all these kinds of things. I'm going to start looking at other roles because I have this bad habit. I'm just like, I'm very impulsive. I've been working on it. Shout out to therapy and such, like, but, and then shout out to, like, being able to talk. So I also used to be someone who would not talk to anyone about anything, but, and you have absolutely seen like a change in, like, maybe
a lot.
The last maybe 6 months, like, significant change, right?
No, the last, I think, year has been, career wise, it's a different story. Like, you're always, I know, because your work ethic, speaks a lot about you. But yeah, as a your personality, as an individual, you have improved on a lot of things. And over the 2 years, if you see, it's massive.
We should do an episode on that. But yeah, I appreciate you, because you're like the one of the first people that I go to when I'm like, I'm feeling this way, let's, like, help me, like, talk this thing out. Whereas before, like, one of the biggest issues that I had was, like, I would just never talk to anyone about anything, because I whether it be, like, ego or pride, or I was scared to be, like, judged, or whatever it is, for, like, a bunch of reasons, right? So I remember talking to you, and, like, you were talking to me, like, okay, I get these changes kind of things, and I had told you, like, oh, I have, like, in my DMs, I have, like, a couple of opportunities of people, like, wanting to interview or, like, even take it to the next level and whatnot. And I told you, like, I remember the one thing I just said is, like, I'm not going to make any, like, sudden decisions. That's, like, the one thing. And then I talked to my parents. I talked to, like, my siblings. I talked to a couple. I around that week also happened to be, like, a week where a couple of people, I think one, like, ex-Microsoft person who had been here for a couple of years, and then someone who I consider a mentor on a different team, I was able to, like, have like I think lunch with them individually, or, like, a co-working session individually with them. And, like, I'd spoken to them about it because it's just essentially people that I trust, because they've been through it, right? And then, like, I got different perspectives, and I really conformed myself. And I was like, all right, I think in reality, I think what is happening here is, like, let's go. I went to, like, let's go to the basics. Are you unhappy with your salary? No. Do you feel like you are not being respected or appreciated, or that your work is not being valued? And I was like, no, I mean, I just got promoted. Like, I like, whenever I bring up projects, like, I got fully support and things like that. I was like, do you get along with your team? Yeah, fantastic. Everyone's awesome. Right. I was like, okay, that's covered. Like, do you get along with your manager? I was like, yeah, I definitely get along with my manager. It's like, okay, so my basics are covered. So, like, where is, like, this, like coming from? And then I noticed two big things, really. So probably the biggest one is just change. Like, change is really hard for a lot of people to, I think it's just accept. And it's just part of us. It's like a human nature. Yeah, it's tough because, like, it's kind of scary too, because I'm like, oh, well, and maybe I was kind of thinking, like, oh, is what I'm going to end up doing later, is, like, or the changes to the role or changes to the team or whatever it is that am I going to be someone who can't perform as well in that? So I was like, genuinely just, afraid of change. And then I think the second thing was just, I was getting so much outside influence from social media. That's it. That's just a reality. And that was on me because I was consuming too much.
Yeah, that is a really good point now that you have brought it up, because one thing I have noticed for the past 2 years is how impulsive and how quickly I would open up a job posting because I saw, your LinkedIn or your Twitter, whatever you use, of people saying they are starting this new role at XYZ. They're starting this, amazing role at Amazon, Facebook, whatever, right? And I think that even though it should not influence us, but there is a certain amount of impact that goes into the brain. And the next thing you know, I'm looking up roles at those companies, and if I do like something, I'm gonna hit apply, even if it's only been, I don't know, let's say 4 months at Google. So definitely, I think we need, I definitely need to regulate my social media use, but there's a play in that. Like it.
No, absolutely. I think tech Twitter, tech LinkedIn, or whatever you want to call it is, everyone's going to share their opinion about being, happy or unhappy. And I let a lot of that influence me. And then the thing about social media is, like, whatever opinion that you have and you want to validate, you can find someone else who agrees.
Then you feel validated.
So if you go on to it with, like, Yeah. If I have the mindset of like, I want to leave Microsoft, I'm going to find a bunch of opinions of people saying like, you should leave. It sucks here, or it sucks when I was there, whatever it is. Right. But then when I remember around that time taking like a significant amount of time, well, in my opinion, a significant amount of time off of it. So I ended up going to my parents for like a couple of days, like a long, like extended weekend or something like that. And I didn't have social media. Like I wasn't on Twitter. I wasn't LinkedIn. I sat down and I just really like journaled, and I thought about like, what is it? And I realized it's change and it's external influence. And then I'm like, okay, the first thing I can control, I can control both things. I can't control other people's opinions, but I can control how much of it I see. And the first thing I can absolutely control. And then this conversation with I don't want to call out names because I don't know if they want to be named publicly, but someone who is like very up in Microsoft, very high up in Microsoft. I spoke to them like, this is what's going on, things like that. And then they told me like, every reorg, if you're happy where you're at, if you're generally happy with your role, every reorg is just going to be an opportunity for you to challenge yourself. And if you start that off by thinking that you're scared that you're not going to do well, then you're not going to do well, because that's the context that you're giving that change for you. So you're already setting yourself up for failure. And I was like, you're like, and it's so simple, but it's just like the reality, right? But if you go into this seeing like, all right, cool, you got new things to hit, you got to try new things, you got to experiment, you got to just kind of put yourself out there and see what happens. If you go into that mindset, then that's what you're going to go do. And guess what? Next reorg is going to happen. Like this, you can either, I think the hardest hitting thing was like, if you're genuinely scared of change, you need to leave Microsoft, because reorgs are just a thing that happens here. And then it was kind of like a slap in the face, but it's just honest truth. It was just, and then no one could have told me that except this person, right? And then you should probably go look at roles outside of here. And I was like, well, no, I want to stay. And I was like, okay, then you got to get comfortable with change. And that's it. That's as simple as it was. But, you know, like sometimes like certain people will say certain things and it just doesn't hit the right way, or maybe it's a timing, it's a condition, whatnot. And then I remember talking to you, and then I was telling you I decided not to leave, and you were like, thank God. And then once you said that, I was like, yeah, I'm like, I know this is like the right thing. And now I'm like I'm like very happy, you know, things are I'm not gonna lie, like isn't like not things are still like getting figured out, you know, but I'm the mindset is very much like, all right, whatever comes kind of thing. But yeah, that's like the story of me almost leaving. But me almost leaving is more so, I think, just an ego thing, whereas you leaving was genuinely just like, I'm not happy here.
True. But I think
that's the difference.
I think it is. I think I'm just glad we had this discussion, because, you know, it gives perspective to, you know, how the environment that you're in and how different decisions that the organization or the company makes can impact the employees, right? So I think it shows the audience both scenarios where, you know, one great company, both of them are great companies to work for, but then you are unhappy, even though your colleagues and your teammates, your, you know, managers and the organization itself is amazing, but there were some decisions that caused for me to lose trust. And then also I was not happy in the role, and just moving to a different team would have taken a lot of time. I decided to leave. For you, it was like, okay, leadership made a decision which did impact you, or will impact you as you go forward. But it's like up to you if you want to take it as a challenge, or you want to be, you know, impulsive and be like, okay, this change might ruin my career, so I'm gonna move.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, if you look at it, if you abstract everything, it just generally does come down to the fact of like environment. I was happy with what I was doing, and you weren't, and that's why changes happened the way that they did happen, or didn't happen, right? Yeah, a lot of that does affect you. Hopefully we're not coming off as like complainers, because I think I also don't like the kind of mindset of like, oh, if you make like a lot of money, like you shouldn't complain or you shouldn't be unhappy.
Yeah, and I
we're
think
very grateful. Like we're super grateful. Like there's not one day that I don't wake up and like, damn, I'm so grateful
no,
for
and
the
I
life
take
that I have.
so I do want to bring it up because like we do have that self-awareness of, the privileges we have. So, whether it be financially, so we have, good financial, support or whatever you want to say, because whatever we have, like the salary we have been getting, and then we have that freedom of being like, hey, I want to leave Google today because, I'm not happy. That comes with the privilege. And then also like, we can lean on our parents for emotional and, other support that we need. We have great friends. But I think privilege, it's always not privilege, because I do also want to point out that it's a life that took, for you it took 6-7 years to be where you are, and for me it took me 5-6 years, and you have done the hard work, which has, I think, led you here. Same goes with me. So I do want to say we earned the privilege. We were not like served, but yeah, there is definitely the privilege of having these conversations and making these decisions of I want to leave Fang.
Also, if anything, I want people to understand that it's just your career can just be so complicated and so uniquely yours, which is why another reason I decided to stop random cloud chats is because I felt like I kept giving advice that just seemed so generic. But when I look back at my career, like, and how things happened, like, it was just like, the way things played out happened specifically. Like, I would have never gotten the sysadmin job if I didn't happen to move to a new town, a new place 2 weeks before I found that job, right? Things would have been completely different. And then me giving the advice of like, oh, try support, try sysadmin, like, could have been completely different for me. Though there's a lot of general advice that I could still provide and stuff like that. I just felt like, I think now where I am with my career, I kind of want to start talking more so about like, just like these things can be more complex and there more just be, not complex, but just more
a thorough,
unique.
Yes.
Yeah, they deserve more than just me just being like, oh, go get this or go do this or go like, definitely. There needs to be more, which is what the platform here we want to do and we want to talk about. And speaking about talking about, we've been at it for like hour 15. I don't know how long we want to keep. I think 90
minutes would be the max.
90. Yeah. All right, cool. So that was a great conversation. And I think maybe did you want to do something at the end? Like an ending
I think
section?
The ending would be perfect for questions.
Resources.
Questions and shoutouts. I don't have any.
Do you have any?
But what I want to do is go tag us on Twitter or Instagram, whichever platform you use, at learntocloud. And just ask away your questions. Can be cloud, DevOps, career, or if you're trying to break into cloud, and we'll pick them and answer in the next episode. So this would be, I think, the perfect kind of time to answer those.
Yeah.
And then, for shoutouts, I think
community questions.
Cyber. So we have cloud security now on Learn to Cloud. They did a great job of contributing to Learn to Cloud.
Shout out there.
So if you're trying to break into cloud, go check out learntocloud.guide. And
shout out there, man. I just add a little context to that. I hit up Day. I was like, yo, you want to do like I hit him up on this Instagram, like, yo, you want to add something to Learn to Cloud? He was like, for sure. So I set it up.
Yeah.
Then I went to sleep. As soon as I woke up, there was a PR ready. He was like, this is done. Here you go. I was like, the initial draft to like Learn to Cloud took me like weeks, and this guy had a whole phase done overnight. So shout out Day. Yeah, introduction to cloud security. I think it's just like a fantastic addition, something that we kept getting requests for, and like you and I, like we're notorious for not talking about stuff that we have no idea about. So because we don't want to be out here lying and be like, yeah, go get this.
Because,
like we don't know.
My opinion won't matter since I'm not the expert. So
yeah, exactly. So we got a professional to go and help us out with that. But yeah, shout out to Day. I also do want to shout out Forrest. I typically don't like to advertise.
We are in no way sponsored by
Twitter ebooks,
the Cloud Resume Challenge. This is an honest
and this is honest opinion. And I bought, so Forrest tells, this is Twitter conversation. We were talking about me contributing to Cloud Resume Challenge repo, where he has additional projects and such that people can do. And full transparency, he messaged me like a month ago and I never got back to him. And I've been meaning. It's just one of those things that kept slipping by. And then I hit him up whenever I did that video. I was like, hey, Forrest, just letting you know, I haven't forgotten about this. Gonna get something in there. And then he tells me like, oh, like, have you seen this like book that I did? And I was like, I gotta go check this out. So I bought it. I paid full money for it. I didn't want him to give it to me for free because I support good content. And I didn't even know had to like look. I didn't need a sample or anything for me to know like whatever it is, it's gonna be quality because I know Forrest. I know his kind of work. So I checked the book out. And I'm like, this is freaking fantastic. And I've ranted about this before, but I just dislike the $10 ebook Twitter culture that exists. Because people will like get into roles, get into fields, get into things and like think they're complete experts and then they'll go like take advantage of beginners and say like, this $10 ebook that I'm selling on Gumroad is going to get you all the answers and change your life. And then obviously doesn't because they don't know what they're talking about. But Forrest has been in the field for years. He's worked at a couple of big tech companies, big person in the serverless space as well. And overall someone I respect. So I was like, all right, this is definitely worth it. I go through the book. I'm like, this is freaking awesome. Made the video. Shout out to you, Forrest. There's a discount code in my like YouTube video if you want to get 10% off. I'm not getting commission or anything like that. It was generally just something he extended. Yeah, it'll be in the show notes. It's just something he's like, if you want to get a little discount for people who find it through you, like absolutely. I was like, fantastic. So there's that. Yeah. So shout out to that. I think that's it. Oh, here's a question that I can answer that everyone, since my day in the life video, everyone has been asking me this question. What app do I use to track my day and my habits? And everyone was just like, what app is that? What app is that? What app is that? It's called Streaks. Streaks on iOS. It's really simple. All it does is just like you hold down the thing and it completes the task. That's it. I don't want people to think like this app is going to change your life. No, you could track this on a piece of paper and then just check mark, put the date, check mark. The thing that will change and introduce new habits and such to you is momentum and consistency. You see one check mark, all right. You see two check marks, fine. You see 20 check marks, like, all right, I'm getting somewhere. You see 60 check marks. You see 100. You see 500. I have like the bed one for like 500 days. I'm like, I can't break that. I don't care if I sleep on the floor with like a bag. I will fold that bag up and like, I did my bed, check it off, right? Like just to keep that going. It's the momentum. It's not because I know the app isn't free, and I'm not selling any magical things here to people. Like it's not the application or anything like that. It's just the fact that you're tracking it, right? What gets measured gets, what the heck is that quote? What gets measured gets managed, something like that. But it essentially just means like, if this is something you're paying attention, you build jokes. I mean, you build these streaks, you build the momentum, then you're gonna see progress. Right? But you gotta keep yourself accountable. That's all it is. All right. So. I think we hit the 90-minute thing here. Any last minute words?
No, I think this is the first episode, so stay tuned to see what's coming, as we're coming with very different kind of approach as to our last podcast. This is very different, but it's still the cloud duo, and we'll be talking about cloud and then career and also our lives. So stay tuned.